Simple interest is calculated by multiplying the principal by the rate by the time. So interest is just the amount of money that we get paid for lending or investing a sum of money, or that we pay for borrowing a sum of money. Principal is the amount of money that we are depositing or borrowing, and then the rate is given as a percentage, and it varies from lender to lender depending on what their interest rate is for the month, the year, at any particular period of time. So the formula is I is equal to P times R times T. Interest is equal to principal times time times rate. All we have to do for these is find each variable in our problem. So our first problem is you deposit $2,000 in a savings account at Community Savings Bank, which has a rate of 6%. Find the interest at the end of the first year. So we're going to say I is equal to P times R times T. Principal is the $2,000, the amount of money that we started off with. So I will put a P around that. And then the rate, 6%, so R. And the time is at the end of the first year. So time is going to be 1, P is going to be 2,000, and rate is going to be 6%. But let's go ahead and make that into a decimal so we can calculate it out. So we have 6%, so 6.0, and we want to move it from a percentage to a decimal. So making it a smaller number is how I like to remember that. So that means we'll go 2 to the left. So 1, 2, put our decimal point in and add the 0. So now 6% is going to be 0.06. All we do is plug each value in. I is equal to 2,000 times the rate, 0.06, times time of 1 year. So when you calculate all of that out, 2,000 times 0.06 times 1 is going to give you $120. So the interest that you would make off that savings account for 1 year is going to be $120. So at the end of that first year, you will have your principal amount of $2,000 that you initially invested, and then you will have made $120. So you will have $2,120 at the end of the first year. A student took out a simple interest loan for $1,800 for 2 years at a rate of 8% to purchase a used car. What is the interest on the loan? So the first thing we're going to do is write down the formula. I is equal to P times R times T. And then let's go through and find everything. Principal, $1,800. So I'll put a P there. The rate, 8%. So I'll put an R there. And the time, 2 years. Okay, so let's change. So P 1,800, R 8%, and T 2 years. Let's change the 8% to a decimal so that we can multiply it out. So 8.0, I'm going to change it from a percentage to a decimal. So I like to remember, okay, a percentage, a decimal is a smaller number, so I'm going to move it 2 to the left to make that a smaller number. So 1, 2, and that's just the way I think of that. That's how I remember, do I go left or do I go right? I always say going left 2 is going to make that number smaller, and a decimal, I think of a decimal as a smaller number. When I'm going from a decimal to a percentage, I think, okay, I'm going to make this number bigger. So I'd go 2 to the right. Moving the decimal place to the right makes the number bigger. So that's just how I remember it. It's probably not the best way of thinking it, but those are just some quirky little things, again, that might help you when you're taking a standardized test or taking your test for this type of thing. It's just something to always remember down the line when this might come up on the SATs or in life. Maybe when you're getting your first car, things like that. Okay, so anyway, back to 8% as a decimal is 0.08 because we moved it 2 to the left. So now we just fill in 1800 times 0.08 times 2. So you'll multiply all of that out, and it will give you $288. So what is the interest on the loan? So for 2 years, paying 8% interest rate for $1,800, you are going to pay $288 in interest. So in total, you will have paid the $1,800 and then the interest of $288. So after all of that, you're going to be paying $2,088 total over the 2-year period for your used car.